All right, let's do it live on a Monday edition of Cleveland Browns Daily. I am merely Bo. Gibbe is behind the glass. Dr. Z is off today chasing the small ball in an outing.
It's a nice, cool day, crisp.
I'm going to tell you, you and I do this sometimes. We give him a little hell for these type of things.
Absolutely.
Just because it's shtick and we like to have fun with him. We love him. I wouldn't trade places with him. I can say that emphatically. Like if he said, all right, you can come out here, I'll do that, I would say, nope, I'm good. It's hot.
Yeah.
Hot.
Yeah.
Hot out there.
Yesterday, had the whole family over because, we don't do anything small on our side.
You like a big
solid 22 people.
That's solid.
And everybody's like, oh, it's a nice breeze back here. It's great. I am over the grill, and I'm like, this is easily 115 right now.
It's easy.
I don't know exactly what breeze you're speaking of, but I feel like I've sweated off half a person here.
All right, to that end, when did we start warning about excessive heat as a weather feature? When did this become a thing? Yesterday.
I'm aware.
Yeah. So, I'll get to how it didn't impact me because I was on the Peacock, so it didn't, but it did at the club. They had it on. But when did this become a thing? It's June. It's hot. Like, to me, I don't need a weather banner for it's hot. Weather banner me on thunderstorms, extreme. Weather me on tornadoes, fine, absolutely. I got all
the whole flood warning.
Flood warnings, fine, makes sense. I don't know why we had to do an excessive heat. What felt like, from the look of it, from in the distance, it looked like it was about every 7 to 10 minutes.
Yeah,
there was an excessive heat thing, and it wasn't like it was just like it's going to be 137 degrees for the next hour. Please seek shelter. It's going to be hot all week, dude. That's just a forecast.
Yeah.
And I was in that business for a long time. That's just a forecast. It's hot. It's hot. What can we do? We
Correct.
can't flee. Where are we going to go? Take shelter for a week because it's hot?
You want to fly to Alaska?
Where are we going to go?
You want to go to Maine? Maybe Maine? I've been to Maine in the summer. It's cool. Duluth, Minnesota. I've been there.
Get it?
It sucked. It's cold in the summer.
I'm just looking at it's really hot this week. It's 95, 95, 94, 91, 91, 92, 93.
Yeah.
It's
We're going to set up maybe a record today.
Yeah, it's
okay.
hot. It feels like it.
It's June.
It's an oven. But it's also summer.
Correct.
This happens. And by the way, 2 weeks ago it was 60 and 58. So this all works itself out.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that. I did not understand the excessive heat thing. I've never seen that before.
Like, just open your door and walk outside.
Yeah, it's hot.
I think you're going to know it's excessively warm.
It's not going to, it's 95. It's not going to be the end of your life.
Correct.
Right? There are people who live in the South and in the desert that it's 117. It's really hot. If you're someone who doesn't have shelter, get to a shelter. Don't have your pets out in this without a bunch of water and a way to cool off. Like, common sense. But it's not biblically hot.
Correct.
Jeez, I didn't understand that at all. I didn't understand the point of that.
And like you said, you take care of, I'll check in on my parents. I told them, I said, if for some reason the power goes out because everybody and their brothers got the air conditioning set at 65 degrees and the power goes out and you need somewhere to go, just go to my house.
Yeah, it's fine.
Like, you check on your loved ones, make sure everybody's good, but it's hot. It's summer.
It's hot.
I would take this over a foot of snow any day of the week.
This is what it is. It's in the brochure.
Yeah.
It's all there. Do you want to do the breaking news first or do you want to do the U.S. Open? We should do the breaking news.
We should probably do the breaking news because it does involve us.
It does involve us. So this is fun. Schefter with this, among others. For the first time, Hard Knocks in season will feature a division, and that division is the AFC North. It's going to debut on Tuesday, December 3rd at 9 o'clock on HBO. It's going to stream on Max. Will air on Tuesdays through the end of the NFL regular season and continue into the NFL playoffs in January of 2025. So what's interesting about this is I have not had much use for the Hard Knocks off-season that I think they're doing with the Giants. I don't even know if it started yet. I'm not into it. I don't even know if it's aired. I'm not going to be into it if it hasn't. I really love Hard Knocks. Training camp.
Yes.
When that's on, I don't think I've ever missed one. Whether it was – I've seen all of them. The Lions, Jets, most recently us, which was a really interesting perspective because we were in the building and knew how off they were on the storylines that they were telling.
Yes.
But it feels like they've gotten that rectified with the upcoming seasons. So last year, they did in season. Was it with Arizona?
Yep.
I didn't watch an episode of it.
No, they did the Colts, I think, the year before that. Never watched it.
Now I'm going to watch this. I mean, they picked a great division. This is the most interesting division in football, so there's a great deal of intrigue around these four teams. Any one of these four could win the division. I know sometimes he'll say, well, not Pittsburgh, but I don't know. If Russ plays well, they went to the postseason with incompetency. Like, I think anybody in this division could win it. I think they're all playoff teams. So you pick the right division. The question will be the access that they're given. And the thing that's hard for me about the in-season Hard Knocks is I don't have enough time to watch all the things I want to.
Correct.
I'm tapped.
Now, the only thing I'll say, it starts week 13.
I know it. That's
so
way
that's
into December.
I believe that is the day after our Monday night tilt against the Broncos.
Yeah, but it would have been backloaded, right? So you would have got like the first month of the season would be December, whatever. You know what I mean? They're going to be telling the stories of like September in December.
I don't know that.
I would think.
I don't think they didn't do that last.
I don't know. I didn't watch it. My hunch was that they would be here filming leading up to
it. I was wondering when filming would start.
Yeah.
But I mean, you take a look at our last remaining games from that point on: at Pittsburgh, home for KC; at Cincinnati, Miami at home; at Baltimore. Something tells me that if we're good, we're going to be featured a lot on that.
Well,
3 AFC North opponents?
How in the hell are you even going to decide who gets the hour? Every one of those teams is box office.
Correct.
Unless there's injuries.
That will be fascinating to watch. Because featuring one team, okay, that's easy to do. Featuring four, that all four could be in a playoff contention down the stretch, I don't know how you determine that.
Well, now it's one more thing I got to watch, though. Like, I got to lock into this now. So.
Bishop, I feel like you can handle this.
I don't know if I can. That time of year, I'm in the middle of basketball. I got 16.
It's the holiday season.
There's a lot going on, brother. There's a lot going on. But I'll be into it now. I mean, I haven't watched it yet. So have you seen the ones they did with the Colts and the Cardinals?
I saw the Colts one a couple times, and it was up to date with the game. Like, they turned it around from Sunday to
So I wonder why
Tuesday.
they're not starting it until December then. Just to let
Probably,
too much of the season play out?
Yeah, I bet you want to see who's going to be good and who's not going to be good.
I mean, you're like 10, 12 games in at that point.
Yeah. I mean, what if Burrow goes down again?
Yeah.
I mean, are you featuring the Bengals? Probably not.
Yeah. I mean, it's fascinating stuff. It's going to be a win. It's going to be a win for them.
I wonder how they'll do it, because remember the last time, it wasn't like there were camera crews just walking around. Remember, there were like little cameras set up in every conference room.
When they were here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden the light would turn green. You were like, oh, crap, someone's listening in on this.
Well, yeah. And then the other thing that was kind of tricky about that from our perspective, it was like the eye in the sky all the time. But then the other thing that was kind of interesting was can they possibly have that type of manpower spread out over 4 teams?
Correct.
You know what I mean? And then, like, how willing are you as a coach to participate in this in the middle of it? I mean, we know how secretly our guy goes about business anyway during the season. He says nothing. So, like,
I don't know if they're thrilled about it.
No. There's no chance anybody in that operation, any of those 4 teams is thrilled about it.
But, like, when they were here, that conference room outside our office that was their editing studio.
Yeah,
they
right
had curtains all the way up to the top, covered, and they worked around the clock in there.
Do you think that ours is the best example of a team, or maybe the most notorious example of a team misdirecting them?
Oh, yeah.
Because what we saw, the teams previous to us and then the ones that have followed have played the hits. They've all played the hits. I mean, it was the Aaron Rodgers show last year. The Lions played the hits. It was all Dan Campbell. Like, they got with us, there was nothing. There was nothing. I mean, what came? They're following Brogan Roback.
Yeah.
And Kajus. Remember that?
Carl Nassib with financial advice.
Right. That was funny. There was some funny stuff in there. Like the most the one that I remember the most was like Hugh making a big deal telling Baker he was the backup. He was the number 1 pick of the draft. He brought him into the office to tell him he was the backup.
Was that the year that Freddie and
it's year Freddie
Todd
said,
and everybody spoke up in the meeting?
He was in the meeting and he said, I think we ought to hit or something like that. We got guys on these bikes and I think we ought to hit. And Hugh was like, well, that's why I'm in this seat here and you're in that seat there, that type of thing. And then lo and behold, didn't Freddie have a joke about that at one of his pressers a little later?
I'm pretty sure he did.
I think he did. I think him and Greg maybe had a little fun with that a little bit down the road. But yeah, I mean, it was so if you get the access, it's awesome. And the reality is that this is we were going through like this offseason, we've gone through the divisions. This is the best division in football. There are 4 teams in it. I think probably all 4, if you go in their buildings, they would say, we're going to go win the Super Bowl. They believe it. Us and Pittsburgh, we got to get, they're at bigger questions at quarterback than Deshaun, but Deshaun's got to play a whole year. Burrow's got to play a whole year, those type of things. But every team in this division would fancy themselves a Super Bowl contender. And so it's just going to be an absolute survival of the fittest the last couple months, provided that's what we get to. If they're trying to turn it around weekly with here's content from this week, then I think that's where you get, and that's going to be pretty fascinating, that part of it. So that's good. Hard Knocks, AFC North. It will begin in early December, your in-season Hard Knocks. And then it's the Bears, right, for Hard Knocks?
Yeah,
so that's great.
That'll be some good watching.
Yeah. So both of those will be very, very strong. All right, U.S. Open. So I'll start this by saying this. In 2010, I was covering the Memorial Tournament for the CBS affiliate in Columbus, and we were there usually it was really Monday to Sunday. We were there the whole time. We were long hours, 10 to midnight every day. We were up there. And Rory McIlroy was playing his first Memorial Tournament, and he was a phenom for sure. I mean, he was the European Tiger. There wasn't any delusions of grandeur that he was going to get. At that time, you thought Tiger was going to get 25 majors, and he probably would have if he wouldn't have been hurt. But there was nothing like that. But Rory certainly was somebody that we had all heard whispers about. He was somebody who was on the come. He was somebody who he's got next, that type of stuff. One of the more talented, gifted players we'd ever seen. And he showed up at Jack's Place in 2010 for the first time. And he finished, I want to say, in the top 10, if my memory serves. And he was as personable, kind, gracious a kid as you're going to find. Just a really impressive kid. Really impressive. And incredibly generous with his time and would play along and mature well beyond his years. So I've had a soft spot for Rory McIlroy since then. That's where that comes from. I root for him. If he's in the mix, I root for him. I am also aware that he is somebody who, in these moments over the last decade, has been in a lot of them. In fact, they had a graphic up yesterday where they showed that final round of a major, he laps the field over the last 10 years in terms of overall score. And that's what it feels like. He's in the mix a lot. You remember the 150th Open where he didn't do anything wrong. He just didn't do anything right.
Correct.
Like Cam Young just went out and won it, and he just made shots and won it. So I basically watched this all weekend. It's probably the most golf I watched, which was interesting because while I did not like the look of Pinehurst, all the holes felt like the same to me. It provided probably the best theater we've ever had at a U.S. Open in terms
absolutely.
Because you just didn't know. Z's big beef with it, you were off on Friday, Gibby, but Z's big beef with it, and I understood it from a pure golf standpoint, is both of us can hit it into the same spot in the rough. One of us can be perfectly fine and the other one is screwed, and that's not right. And I understand that. That the variable in the rough was, because they don't have rough, was so dramatic that you could either be fine or you could be screwed, and it was the difference of 2 inches. It was a potluck once you got in there. So it provided this great drama. So I had it on all weekend. We had it on. We brought the TV outside. We were out at the pool and stuff. I brought the TV outside yesterday afternoon. We're watching it there. The kids were glued to it. I was glued to it. We went to dinner, and we brought the phone so we could watch on Peacock on the phone while we were eating dinner.
Good move.
Father's Day dinner, which I'm usually not for, but we did that. And we watched all of it. And I was watching McIlroy with a great rooting interest. And it wasn't that I was rooting against Bryson, more on that in a second, but rather just like, okay, he's finally going to do it. Like He's doing all the things right. He's hitting every putt. He's scrambling like crazy. His iron play was god awful. He couldn't hit his irons to save his life, but he was scrambling and he was doing it. And all of a sudden, he had a 2-shot lead going to the tee at 16, and you said, "Okay, bogey home will probably do it. One bogey home. If you go 3 pars and a bogey, you would have done it. That's it." And then he missed the 2-footer on 16.
Yep.
And you went, "Oh God, how are you going to miss a 2-footer? I mean, it's 2 feet. It's 2 feet 6 inches. I can't." 18 was a little trickier. It was 4 feet, and it was a bender. Like you saw how far he played it out, and it still came back downhill. That's a little slippery, but even 4 feet is. But the 2-footer, once that happens, then when he goes to the ball on 18, and he like goes to approach it, then he steps back. I'm like, he's missing it. And NBC was sitting next to me. He goes, "Dad, how do you know? Why are you so negative?" And I'm like, "Dude,
it's in his head.
It's in his head. It's done.
Yeah,
it's cooked. It's cooked." So it was gut-wrenching watching him crumble. I mean, that's got to be the most painful major loss of his career. He's got a 2-shot lead with 4 to play.
Yeah,
that's it.
I mean, his and by the way, for most of that final round, his putter was working.
He was 496 out of 496 inside of 3 feet on the year.
Yeah,
496 of 496 until 16 in the final round.
He went
of the US
3
Open.
out of 4 holes where he birdied.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what.
Yeah,
he
and
just
it was
had
knocking down putts and just had it going. So my heart just broke for him. And at the same time, you're watching DeChambeau, and I think of a guy who, and I don't think this is an overstatement. He at times during, and this happened at Memorial, and again, a lot of my golf comes from there, kind of a petulant punk was kind of his reputation 3 or 4 years ago. He's flipped it. What he did this weekend at Pinehurst was awesome, and he did it at the PGA too.
I was going to say he did it
at the PGA too. I don't know if it's a combination of him maturing and, live golf just isn't that competitive. Like, it's just not. It's 3 rounds, you're in shorts, the team component, all of that. But, like, he has taken the Ryder Cup and he's brought it to majors. And I think it helps him mentally because he's dapping up people whether he gets a birdie or a double bogey like he did on, 15 or 14, double bogeyed 14. He's dapping them. It doesn't matter. And his 18th hole is bonkers. It's going to be the stuff of legend. Hitting it underneath that tree, and because all of his irons are the same length, he can't get a hold of it.
Yeah,
bend
there's
over.
a tree root right there.
Right, and because his irons, his wedge is the same length as his driver.
Yep.
So he couldn't get under it. So he kept trying to figure out how to hit it. Now, he had the knowledge that Rory made bogey because it happened right in front of him, so he would have known that par wins it. But then the sand save on 18.
Yeah, because
it's an all-timer.
He gets it out of that little mess and ends up in a bigger mess.
Right, you say, well, how are you going to stop it?
Yep.
And he did. And he hit the putt. And you think that's as clutch as it gets. So, to me, Bootsy, I wasn't rooting. I was rooting for Bryson too. Like, it was just great theater. Couple of Beamsy and Bootsy were kind of rooting a little bit for Bryson. NBC and I a little bit for Rory. But I wasn't rooting against Bryson. It was just great theater. It was both, I think, gut wrenching for McIlroy and euphoric for DeChambeau. DeChambeau won it and Rory lost it. I don't think that they're mutually exclusive. I think both happened.
And I agree with all the comments last week on the golf course. I think the golf course does not look good. I think they've almost ruined Pinehurst with what they've done or whatever the sand is and these vegetation, wildlife areas,
looks
whatever.
Crazy.
I don't.
Have you been down there?
No, I have not. Actually, I believe we're going. That's the Hooligans golf trip next year.
Nice.
Yeah, we're headed down there. But it wasn't a U.S. Open where like 1 under even won it. But it wasn't 11, 12, 15 under. Like, I thought it was the right scoring. 5 under, 6 under. Like, competitive, down the stretch. You really can't ask for more. My question, and I put it in the rundown, is the face of golf Bryson DeChambeau. I know everybody's about Scheffler, but Scheffler doesn't have the personality that DeChambeau does.
Here's what I would say. So NBC said this to me. He goes, Dad, why are they glossing Bryson? And I said, I was noticing it too, Saturday and Sunday. Tirico and Hicks, they were talking about Bryson as if he were Tiger at Pebble in 01 up 13. Like he was running away from the field. I'm like, he's up a shot.
Yeah.
He's up 2. He's down 1. But they were so thirsty for some personality to sell it that they were really pushing his agenda, really outwardly. I almost, at one point, I'm like, I wonder if NBC is going to get in business with Liv. Like, I kind of wondered if that was the case, because it was like, this is so much, as my kids say, glossing of him, that it was really out of control, considering how small the lead was.
Correct.
Minimal throughout both days. It was he wasn't even, obviously wasn't even the, when did he get the lead? He took the lead on Saturday.
Correct.
Yeah.
But still, it was a two-shot lead.
But it was overwhelming him, the praise of him, and just, as they say, glossing. So, yeah, he's the face of the majors. The other thing I would say is, I made this point last week with Z, the vast majority of you out there listening, and this is an NFL show, so probably even more than that, are casual golf fans. You are watching the majors, and you might be watching a tournament if there's one in your town. So when we used to have Firestone or Memorial, where I've played that course, what's that look like, right? You'll watch the majors and maybe 1 or 2 other events at most, but probably just majors, really, and really probably just on Sunday of a major and catch it here and there. Golf hasn't changed for you. It hasn't changed at all. If you didn't notice, if you had no point, in fact, one of the boys said, I think Beamsy said, Dad, what brand is Bryson's hat? He was curious, like, is that, a golf brand? I'm like, well, that's his live team. He's like, what's that? And I'm like, so I was explaining it to him, but like the vast majority of people, golf hasn't changed at all.
No.
Koepka's there. DeChambeau's there. Rahm would have been there without the injury. You're just watching the majors. You watch the PGA Championship, but DeChambeau's there. Schauffele's there. You're not watching week to week. You're not watching the RBC. You're not watching wherever they are this week, Hartford. You're not watching that. You'll tune in a couple weeks at the Open. That's it. So golf hasn't changed for those people. No. Really at all. And that's the other part of it, is that you're still getting golf the way you remember it. You're still getting these up and comers. Is Bryson the face of golf?
The PGA may not want to admit it, but they need someone like that.
I don't think there's any saving it.
Really?
Not the PGA. Not the PGA Tour, not Live. I think diehard people watch it, and that's it. But I think the other thing that's happened during this time is that Tiger happened, and Tiger came and went. And Tiger was a phoenix that was going to happen. It was going to happen once. He's a comet, right? It comes through one time. There's no duplicating it. You'll never see it again. It's done. It was always going to revert back from a numbers standpoint. The only thing in sports that's trending up are the 2 footballs, NFL and college. Everything else is trending down. There's some, sometimes some of the college stuff does a little better, but for the most part, it's all trending down. There's with a couple of exceptions. I don't think there was ever going to be a situation where golf was going to maintain the interest it had when Tiger played. There was no player that was going to fix it. There was no elixir. That he was one of one. And so I think that most people watch majors. And if you just watch the majors, your golf is just fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. It was great. I'm guessing it rates I'm guessing it rates crazy. Were you glued to it?
So, no. That was I mean, we had obligations all weekend.
Going on,
my nephew got married. Congratulations to Logan and Amanda. That was on Friday, but family in town Saturday into Sunday.
Yeah.
We're hosting Father's Day. So I'm outside, everybody's eating, and I get a text from my one nephew, and he's like, they're on 16 and you should come inside.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, where is he? And yeah, he's watching one of my TVs, and I'm like, perfect, great, ducking in. So I got to see the last 3 holes, but like it was. I can watch a half hour here. I can watch an hour here.
So you didn't see Rory up 2 with 4 to play?
No, he had just choked. I think he was on 16
probably, or he missed the two. It was 2 foot 6 inches.
Yeah,
on 16. He had 3 of his last 4 he bogeyed. He makes 1 par. He's in a playoff.
Which was the playoff just 2 holes?
3 now.
Oh, it's a 3-hole.
Yeah, because I had commented a couple of weeks ago that the PGA went. I'm like, well, what was the thing for this? And Z was like, I think it's all 18. I said, I don't think so. I think that's just the U.S. But then somebody said they changed the U.S. and the U.S. is now just 16, 17, 18 over and over again.
Okay, that's what we did have that conversation because I was like, I don't think they play all 18, but if that happens on Monday, I'm all in.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
it'd be great.
That would have been fantastic.
Absolutely. This is interesting. I was seeing that I thought this was going to be the case. USGA has selected Pebble, Pinehurst, and Oakmont as the 3 anchor courses to rotate the U.S. Open from between now until 2049. The tournament will play at one of those courses 13 times. The U.S. Open is at Oakmont next year, so it'll be Pinehurst, Oakmont, Pebble. Rotate them through.
There'll be other ones. There will be other courses.
So once every 4 years, there will be something different, and then everything else.
I don't know exactly what it is, but that kind of sucks.
So this is basically a play on the Open, right? The British Open.
Yep.
It's a play on that, how they have the Rota. So future sites for the U.S. Open, Oakmont, which will be as close as it's ever going to be from here because there's never going to be a major in Ohio again, despite us having all these great golf courses.
Correct.
Then it's at Shinnecock, then Pebble, then Winged Foot, then back at Pinehurst, then Marion, then Riviera, then Pebble, then Oakmont, then Oakland Hills, then Pinehurst.
So there's a couple years in between some of them.
Then Shinnecock again, but a lot of these double up. Like there's a couple from Shinnecock, the Country Club, LACC, Marion gets another bite at the apple, Pinehurst, Oakmont, Pebble, Pinehurst, Oakmont, Marion, Oakland Hills. So, yeah, steady diet of these. I wish we could play some different ones from time to time, or at least maybe the PGA should do that. Like if the U.S. Open wants to play these 8 courses all the time, fine. But hopefully the PGA. I don't need to see the PGA playing courses that I associate as U.S. Open courses. Like I don't need them at like Winged Foot and Olympia. I know they're going there. But that I don't need. Yeah. I did get an update from the official teaching pro, Mr. Dixon, of course. He said, I asked him, I'm like, what would a 10 handicap have shot at Pinehurst on Sunday? He said, be lucky if it was 100, honestly. He said when Congo had the Open, you could knock on the green and it sounded hollow. No holding it. That's how fast they were. No chance. He also corrected me. Bryson's irons are the same length, plus crazy upright, which makes that shot even trickier. So there you go.
He got out of it.
Yeah, I think he was great. And did you see the Golf Channel video?
Yeah.
Later, how the guy was trying to recreate it, and Bryson's driving in a golf cart back to probably his house, and he'd stepped in the bunker. See, I think he misses all of that. I think he misses Golf Channel. I think he misses like the attention that comes with the PGA Tour.
Yes.
I mean, as even as the PGA Tour, it isn't rating. Like the Memorial was around 2 million viewers for the Memorial Tournament. Live's 125,000, 150,000. That's a big difference, man. That's a very big difference. And I think that having gone away from it and now back in, and majors are that times a billion, there's something to it.
Yeah. I mean, like him stopping and the gentleman that was in the wheelchair, literally he's on his way to make one of the biggest shots of his life, and he stops to sign the guy's hat. And
I thought it was very cool. Like I said, I wasn't rooting for him against him. Like he was easy to root for.
Yeah.
And I think it's really cool how he's changed what he's all about.
Is Koepka more of a heel now than DeChambeau?
I'm cool with both of them.
I love Brooks.
I do too. I think he's fine. I just think Bryson's grown up a lot. But that's a great example. That's when I talk about like a petulant punk. Like he was that at one point.
Yeah.
He's not anymore. So he's grown up. So good job out of him. It was fun. It was thrilling stuff. I was locked into it most of the day. Those are your hot topics of the day presented by University Hospitals. Billy Joel and Rod Stewart together for the first time ever. It is Friday, September 13th, Cleveland Browns Stadium. Tickets are on sale now. Visit clevelandbrownsstadium.com/Billy and Rod 2024 for more information and to claim your tickets now. Don't miss Billy Joel, Rod Stewart together. It is one night only. We go around the sports world coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back in. Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Ballybet, sports betting partner of your Cleveland Browns. Now live in Ohio. I had we did the golf afterwards, and Bootsy and I got the two older ones. It went down to the final hole, but we were able to hold on and win. It was tight. Earlier in the day, we played basketball, and so they do this thing. I don't understand it. NBC and Beamsy, where, and if they're listening, I guess I'm giving them the keys to the kingdom here because I don't have any idea why they do this. They double team me full court, and then they allow Bootsy to just go make layups. And their argument for it is that he can only make half of them. Okay, but they're uncontested, and I can't do anything from here. Like full court, I'm not making this shot.
Yeah, I'm 25 feet from the hoop. Why are you double teaming me?
I'm 60 feet from the hoop. Like, you're not – I can't – I'm not doing anything. So, like, what are you doing up here? And so they do that all the time. And so Bootsy and I beat him first two games, and they were doing some infighting. So then NBC was like, all right, let's go one-on-one. So he hasn't beat me yet. And it's 1918. I'm up one. I was up big, and then he kind of came back, and it was 1918. And I took a shot kind of on the side, and it was a long rebound to the other side, and he chased it down. And he got a wide-open look at three. And I took my hat off, and I was going to, like, throw it at him to, like, distract him, which I think maybe caused him to miss. He missed it by about a half inch. And the whole time I'm doing that, I'm like, all right, if that drops, you're going to be gracious. You're going to hug.
No, you're not.
You're going to just got to deal with it like it's that time. But he missed by about a half inch. And so I grabbed the rebound, and then I hit a jumper to win it. And I said, I go, you're going to beat me, bud. You're going to beat me. But not today. Not today.
Your day will come.
But not today.
But not today.
Yet. It's coming. It's very much coming.
What happened in golf? So, okay, so we understand the Bootsy thing, uncontested layups, but what's Bootsy's role in the golf?
He had a huge role yesterday. So NBC and I play for the same tees, and then Beamsy and Bootsy play from the same tees. I'm not a good golfer. So there will be times where I will hit it into the trees, and I need him to just hit it in the fairway anywhere. Just anywhere in the fairway. I don't care if it's 40 yards. So it was tight, and so the big thing is we were on, it was par 5. We were down there kind of by the fringe in 2. So I had a decent drive and a really good second shot to get us right kind of in a way where we could, theoretically a normal human could make birdie. Normal decent player could try to make birdie. I was just trying to get in 5, and we had a one-hole lead in the match, and I did what of course I would do anytime there's opportunity to do anything nice, and I just bladed it. So mine went all the way across the green. I'm like, dude, hey, listen, just chip it up there, just chip it up. And he'd go, this far back, Dad? And he would like do it, and I'm like, less. This far back, less. So then he did it. And he got it. And I'm like, perfect. We're inside 10 feet, 2-putt, win. Not today, boys. Not today. So and he's a pretty good little putter.
Okay.
And he's pretty good. He's decent around the green. Like he can chip it. And
no,
I suck at that.
That's the big thing for Doe, baby.
That's what I need. I need him to be putting it close, and then I need him chipping. Like those are his. And then if I hit it in the trees, I need him to drive it in the middle. So
gotcha.
That's the way that it goes at this point. Boy, the official teaching pro with this, he said that he walked congressional with Bryson years ago. Great guy, just had a bad rap for being weird and smarter than a tour pro. Probably true. He was a little petulant, too, I will say. And he did bring up this. I should have brought this up in the beginning. Rory didn't show much class by leaving without an interview or congratulations for Bryson. Valid. I agree with that. I just think he was gutted. I think he was like he got shot in the stomach. Like,
absolutely.
What just happened? But he should have. I mean, if you take the praise, then you also have to take that part of it as well. That part was crazy. Crazy finish there. All right, we have a T. Higgins franchise tag around the sports world that was signed on Saturday. So this is the second time in 3 years that the Bengals have done this. They did it with Jesse Bates 2 years ago. They're doing it with T. Higgins this year. They're basically loading up. They're franchise tagging, and they're saying, let's go win the Super Bowl, and then we will lose them for compensatory picks, and that's it.
Yep.
So it's a big gamble. I don't know if it's sustainable as a franchise to do that.
Well, you got to keep drafting as well as
you better hit.
Drafting. Yeah.
You just can't lose that type of talent over and over again without recouping it. And they lost. Bates was an All-Pro last year. Higgins is a stud. I mean, they should have kept Bates. Quite honestly.
He was the heart and soul of their defense.
Yeah, they should have kept Jesse Bates.
Yep.
Yeah.
No question. I mean, Higgins, $21.8 million is not a bad number.
No, it's the tag's
for
very
a wide
manageable.
receiver, but you still haven't paid Jamar.
Well, they don't have to. They could do him next year. I know he wants it now, but he's a year ahead of schedule. So he right now is where Jefferson was last year. So he could play it out, and then they could get a max deal. It would behoove them to, because the cap's only going to go up and up and up.
Look at all the guys since we extended Judy.
Absolutely.
Look
what's
happened with
happened.
the wide receiver.
Yeah. So they'd be smart to do it. I don't know if it's in their DNA to do it.
Correct.
Let's talk about Barkley. Do you believe him?
Yeah. Because I think Barkley marches to the beat of his own drum. Now, is it because he doesn't want to go anywhere else and doesn't, if the band's breaking up, we're going to break it up and go out on top? I don't know. He's got his own production company. Can he do other things? Sure, but maybe analyst on studio shows for the NBA is no longer going to be in his repertoire.
So I don't believe him, and here's why.
Okay.
During the Stanley Cup Finals, Game 2 in Florida, for zero compensation, he just walked on the intermission show.
Yep. It was pretty great.
It was funny. It was really good. They're talking about Messier owing him money or whatever and all this. I just think he really likes being Charles Barkley, and you can only play so much golf. So if you're not doing that, what do you do? What's your day?
Well, and frankly, I mean, it requires a sizable amount of cash to gamble and wager.
Absolutely. Absolutely it does. Yeah, and so then what's the other? You mentioned the cash, so that's the other part. There will be a bidding war for his services, whether it's from NBC or ESPN. I mean, he could be a $25 million a year guy. And he could just laugh this off and say, well, they offered me $25 million. And that's it. He could absolutely do that. So I don't think he's done. I think he will continue on in some capacity going forward. And quite honestly, if you're NBC, you'd be very smart to just try and freelance out that entire Inside the NBA show for your Sunday night NBA thing.
Yes.
You'd just be very smart to just bring them all on. Play those games, tip them at 8 o'clock, do an hour pregame show from 7 to 8 with that Inside the NBA crew, and then do a half-hour postgame show from 10:30 to 11. And there you go.
Makes all the sense in the world. I mean, you just got to convince TNT to let them loan you Ernie.
But yeah, that's the only one is Ernie. But like Ernie's been a TNT lifer. I can't imagine TNT wouldn't let him do like what Dan Patrick did for NBC.
Sure.
The only thing would be, though, is they do have that partnership with CBS where they do the NCAA basketball that Ernie still does. But I don't know.
I don't know. And even if if I were Barkley and ESPN was throwing me that money,
yeah,
that's fine. But that ESPN studio show sucks.
It's awful. Yeah, it's unwatchable.
I watched it Thursday night. Was it Thursday night? No, really Wednesday night. It was awful. It is unwatchable.
It is.
For the worldwide leader to be putting that out during the NBA Finals,
They've tried everything. They've had all sorts of different people on it. That now they just lean all in on Stephen A. Like all in. And it's just like they had video of him walking into the arena.
Oh, I know.
Like, come on.
I've seen it.
Yeah, I don't understand. I didn't get that at all. It doesn't make any sense. And that's why I think Chuck will be back. What else? It's a great deal of money.
I mean, he can call his shot.
He's still in his prime. He can say how many he wants to work one day a week. Fine. No one's going to have a problem with it.
Then it would make total sense for him to do the Sunday thing.
Absolutely. I think the Sunday one, that's the no-brainer if they could find a way to do that, to work that out. Both were headed for a sweep, Stanley Cup and NBA Finals. The home teams won bigly in both. The Oilers won 8-1 in the NHL on Saturday night. Or was it Friday night? Friday night. And then the NBA was Saturday night. and the Mavs won by 120. So
Yep.
they just kind of pushed the chips in, and we'll see. Tonight, I guess the Celtics can close it out.
Yeah. Businessman's sweep, maybe?
That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is an interesting stat in here. Despite the Celtics being up 3-1, they've been outscored in the finals 408 to 402. That's misleading, though, a little bit because of how lopsided 4 was. Celtics basically stopped. I think Brown and Tatum were 5 of 22 combined in Game 4.
Yeah,
so
they had their first real bad game.
We'll see on down the road is the way that thing kind of went. Boy, do you want to tackle 30 years ago right now, or should we save that?
Let's save it.
Let's save that. All right, Chris Sims, top 40 quarterback rankings, talks Jameis Winston and the rest of the Browns quarterback room behind Deshaun Watson. You will hear from that coming up next. You listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. All right, welcome back in. Cleveland Browns Daily, brought to you by Bally Bet, sports betting partner, your Cleveland Browns, now live in Ohio on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And now here's Chris Sims. He's doing his top 40 quarterback rankings. We talked about him a little bit last week. Here is Chris talking about Jameis at number 35 and the rest of the Browns quarterback room behind Deshaun Watson.
35.
You're down.
That means we start with 35 in your top 40 quarterback list in 2024. Your 35th best quarterback is?
Yep, and a guy we probably could have lumped together with those, the old quarterbacks we ended off with on Monday afternoon, but it is Jameis Winston. Right, we start number 35. Yeah, he's in Cleveland. He's behind Deshaun Watson. He's a little bit Joe Flacco-ish, right? To where, yes, hey, if he has to come in, he could open up some eyes and make some big plays and do that, right? Arguably, here's what I would say. My headline would be arguably the best big play backup quarterback in the NFL. That's what I would say. When he comes into a game, he's going to stand in the pocket. He is not going to flinch at all, and he is always looking to push the ball down the field, right? Always looking always looking for the big play. Always, sometimes when I got on some of the other guys on the list the other day where, hey, take an extra pat. That guy's about to come open. You're protected. Like, it's a 20-yard in cut. Let's hit it. And then maybe it becomes 40 yards, right? He always gives it a chance. Now, that's also his flaw to a degree, all right? That's the negative, is sometimes it's like, okay, wait, no, I know you think it's about to come open, but this is the third pat. You got to let it go. You're going to get sacked. You're going to get stripped. Right? That's the issues with him. And then at times, again, too, what I love his aggressive frame of mind and, just his aggressive nature altogether. But, yeah, there's also a handful of throws that you could take from last year, the preseason, whatever, and just go, what? Did you really think you were going to fit that in there? Like, what the hell are you thinking, right? He's got a little of that aspect, too. If you took his positive plays and the positive, and you heard this on text yesterday when I was kind of going back and forth with you, right, and you just looked at positive for the most part, you'd go, damn, this guy's he's a pretty big-time starting quarterback in the NFL. But he has a little bit of I just don't give a fuck about him that you cannot trust. And that's the bottom line. You watch the game sometimes and you just go, he just coming in and having fun, and he doesn't care. I don't think he even cares. He's going, I'm going to throw a big completion or I'm going to throw an interception, but I'm going to have fun out here. It really feels that way at times. And because of that frame of mind, it probably knocked him down a few spots, because you heard me in the text yesterday. To me, it's more about trust with Jameis. And as much as I would rather call the offense for Jameis maybe than some of the other guys we have in front of him here, right? Because I'd go, this is my kind of offense. This is what I want to do. We're going to protect him. He'll throw the ball down the field. He'll do all that.
You have everything available
right.
to you.
But also within that offense, I go, well, damn, he might throw 6 interceptions today if we don't call the game the right way and protect him from himself a little bit. So those are kind of the pluses and negatives of Jameis Winston. But yeah, the guy has talent. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, Pete has put narratives in here for all the quarterbacks that we'll talk about in your top 40 list, and I think this one is spot on. The narrative around him is he's the 30-30 man. It could be 30 touchdowns, could be 30 interceptions. YOLO, you only live once. That's basically what Jameis is.
Right.
So, the way you described him is somewhat similar to the way that you could describe Joe Flacco, and that you did describe him last year, and he was the backup in Cleveland. I know there are probably Browns fans that are thinking, hey, what did we do? You had Flacco at 37. Now you have Jameis at 35. Not a whole lot between them. We've seen Flacco step in and be able to carry that team to the playoffs.
That's right. I don't doubt this, that this could do this, and it could be better than Joe Flacco.
So that would be the question, right? You still, if you're the Cleveland Browns, you would take, even if it's a small upgrade, you would take this upgrade from Joe Flacco to Jameis Winston.
Well, I think it's not only the small upgrade, but I think it's the other things and the context around the situation why they went there too, right? Right, it's like Joe Flacco, hey, he won a Super Bowl, and that fan base latched onto him a little bit.
Definitely.
And I think that was a little scary for them, right? Like I talked about. I asked them this question at the Combine. Are you kind of glad you don't have to deal with the Flacco thing, right? Because, if we got to, week 3 and they were 1-2 and Deshaun isn't playing good, Flacco. They were chanting that at the end of the year last year. Right, so that's what I think.
Did they give you an answer?
Well, I think they tried to act like that didn't matter, right? Which I don't buy. And I think that's part of the reason they let Joe Flacco go, because they don't need that headache around Deshaun Watson in their quarterback room. Everyone views Jameis Winston as a backup, but I can tell you from coaches who have watched him in free agency and stuff the last few years, people always come away amazed with Jameis Winston going, damn, he's good. Damn, I think I can fix some of those issues. And I just don't know if you can fix them all the way, right? Sean Payton definitely fixed them to a degree and reined them in about as good as anybody that can rein them in. That'll be, something that you'll have to worry about with him in Cleveland too. And Kevin Stefanski will have to rein him in as well.
Reining him in at the end of a game when you're setting up to take a knee. I looked back on that just because I'm so fascinated by that play. It really was. Like I was like, okay, let me make sure I can wrap my head around what happened here. Jamal Williams was on the team, 17 touchdowns the year before. Get it to the last minute of this game, which, by the way, was set up by an interception. Tyrann Mathieu had like a 74-yard interception return down to the 1-yard line when they're already winning 41-17. It was Chris Lindstrom from the Falcons who ran him down somehow and messed him up enough to where he fell down at the 1-yard line.
Right.
And then so there's a minute left, and Jameis was like, we're going to get Jamal Williams his 1 touchdown this year because he had 17 last year. The man has to end at least with 1.
Right.
That was fascinating to me, and that's probably why he's not back in New Orleans right now.
It caused some problems for Dennis Allen with Arthur Smith after the game and, him having to answer questions there, right? It's not good for Jameis in the fact of, his own coaches were like, damn, I don't like that, and you're going to feel like you have no control over him. Yeah. Those are kind of things other than the locker room, I bet you they were loving him after the game. Like, Jameis, you're the man for doing that for Jamal or doing that, right? That will get you some street cred in that department, but I think it goes a little into the, how much can you trust Jameis altogether category. I'm not trying to be a jerk by that. That's the perception. The perception is the reality in the NFL of what's thought about him, in that way. And, I will say this too, right? He's a solid athlete, but for 2024 quarterbacks, he's about average for the NFL quarterback of this day and age, right? He has a strong arm. It's not a wow arm. He's not a great spiral thrower. He does have a long windup, right? I mean, if you think of Jameis Winston, it's a windmill type of release and throw, right? And because of that and all the moving parts, he can lose control of the ball just a hair at times, right? But I will say that offense didn't fit him either. He's not made for West Coast Derek Carr dink and dunk. That's not what he is, right? He is let him drop back. Let the field open up. He'll make big throws down the field and do that. You want more of that than, quick throw, right on target, precision, right? He's not that because of that long release and the space he needs there. But Jameis Winston's still dangerous, and I wouldn't be shocked if Deshaun Watson got hurt, which is, him staying on the field's a big question. Can he get some mojo going with that Browns football team and win some football games? I don't think there's any doubt he can.
Yeah, the Browns have said that they are open to carrying 3 quarterbacks, which all teams do with an emergency quarterback, but I guess that means maybe just 3 on the
active roster.
Yeah, so they got Tyler Huntley there now. They got
DTR
Dorian
still.
Thompson Robinson there still. So they do have some quarterback talent.
They do. And, I don't know how that goes there. They stash Tyler Huntley away
back at 30.
Right? Because Dorian Thompson Robinson, I'd be afraid with that guy, young guy, got some talent. I do think has some pedigree. If you cut him and he has that 24-hour, window where – he's free and out there, somebody might look at it and go, hey, we'll put you on our 3rd guy on the roster all the time, right? And then he's going to be gone. So I'll be interested to see how they juggle that situation there.
All right, the Cleveland Browns, 35th best quarterback in Jameis Winston, his 10th year in the league.
You're up.
All right, there you go. Chris Sims from his podcast on Winston. Wes Gerard about his impressions from mandatory minicamp. That's coming up next. Listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And get your Cleveland Browns single game tickets now for all the great matchups at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Visit clevelandbrowns.com/tickets or call 440-891-5050 to purchase today. We had it on the Twisted Tea hotline, brought to you by Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. He is the great Gerard Cherry. You know him on the Cleveland Browns Radio Network and on the Next Level, which follows us here every single day. Hey, buddy, good to talk to you. You were out at Minicamp last week for a couple of days. What were some of the things that jumped out to you positively and, if any, negatively?
Well, first thing that I paid close attention to, especially when you have rookies and inexperienced players on the field, Bo, is the level of lining up again, the level of yelling and things that are more demonstrative of what I'm saying taking place. And guess what? I didn't see any of that. I saw guys line up in the right spots, going to the right places, not running again, not getting those side eye looks from the coaches or other veteran players. None of that stuff was taking place. So that was a good sign. And that's a sign that you're getting what? You're getting coaching that is having impact, that once guys hit the football field, Bo, they know where the heck they should line up, because that's the first prerequisite, especially when you have a new offensive coordinator in town.
You know, buddy, we had MJ in here. We had Greg in here. We had Juan Thornhill in here. The word that I kind of kept coming back to when describing the players on this team is that we have a bunch of pros. You played on teams that won Super Bowls, and when you play on, and Vrabes is here in the building, when you play on teams that have that type of success, you have to have a bunch of pros. And I think it helps, Gerard, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, that we have got our pros are guys who were drafted here now. We don't have to bring in a veteran to teach us how to be an adult. We have our guys who are drafted here who can teach everybody and hold them accountable and how to be an adult. That's something I noticed big over the last month. Does that resonate at all with you as someone who's been on teams that knows what it takes to win it all?
Oh, it certainly does, because there's a level of responsibility that's added to the fact that you were drafted here, and accountability goes along with it. Because, yes, you can bring in some mercenaries that are free agents, and some guys are going to be here for the long term. But when you're drafted here, obviously this organization has made a statement that out from the get-go, the infancy of your career, we wanted you to be a part of something we're trying to build here. And when you get those, and you're now talking about guys who are in years 3, 4, and 5, who are now exercising their voice in the locker room and practicing at a high level in which you're not seeing the mistakes and you're seeing guys be competitive, that's a great thing. Because, Bo, I can tell you, there used to be a time when veterans, rookies, and free agents alike came here with not the mentality to work hard. And it would baffle me, because as you just described, I came from a spot to where I know that if you're going to be great and if you're going to win football games, practice has to be just as challenging, just as tough, and the level of expertise and preparation just as great as the actual game. And for those guys who are now exercising that and expressing that, it's a beautiful thing. I can't say it enough, because there was once a time when that was not the case.
Oh, Gerard, I mean, you just think about like when Jarvis got here. Remember the contagious speech?
Yes.
Like, we didn't have pros. We had to bring in Sheldon Richardson. We had to bring in people who taught our young guys how to be pros, and now we don't have to do that anymore because the guys they drafted. Well, before that, we had opportunity. You go back to Kruger and that.
Right.
Then you got opportunists. But, like, when we had those guys that were like, all right, like Jarvis, this is what it takes to be a pro. Right. And then people started to figure that out. Denzel figured that out going up against Jarvis. You started to see those things. So now it's just refreshing to see young guys who are drafted here getting their second contracts in many instances, who are pros, who don't have to be taught how to do it the right way. It's funny. Can you build culture amidst losing? And anytime I ask anybody this, they say, yeah, losing culture. That's what you can build.
Right.
So you got to win first. And now that they've won a little bit, now you have Browns culture.
Right. And funny thing about it is I thought, and I jumped the gun on this because I was convinced in 2020 that it was here. But then the following year, which guys learned the hard way, is that if you have any semblance of success, it's going to be even more challenging and difficult to duplicate that success and move even further. And a lot of guys don't want to go for that road or that travel because it's such a hard road to travel. Mm-hmm. With that being said, when I think about the guys who are in the locker room now and what they've experienced a heartbreaking loss to the Texans. And you get the sense, because this is what I always worry about, Bo, are these guys still hungry, or are they going to live off what took place last year? And in a lot of ways, though I didn't want to witness that beatdown, and every time it comes on NFL Network, I change the channel. It may have been a blessing in disguise because of the fact that, guys, it left a bad taste, in particular in our defense's mouth, and the offense is saying we could have done better as well. Because you always worry with success that the following year you might come back, rest on your laurels, and think that you've solved your problems, not realize that you have to work even harder.
X's and O's wise, one of the things that I know you guys have talked about on the next level, Nathan and I have talked about it a lot. Nationally, I don't know if people have picked up on it as much. This is a fundamental change to who we are offensively as an organization. This is predominantly going to be a shotgun attack. It's funny, we were talking to, I think it was Greg, he was in here, and he was talking about how the receivers are running so many option routes, and so they couldn't jump them the way that they could in the old days because this was the route on this play. So this is a pretty big change. What did you witness in what you saw last week that was different offensively? And what do you make of Kevin Stefanski, who's made his bones, 2-time NFL Coach of the Year, doing it a certain way, now adjusting to his quarterback?
Well, one, I think that's what a coach is supposed to do first and foremost. And I get so frustrated when I see, especially with rookie quarterbacks, where the coach is like, we're going to put my system in. Who cares about your damn system? It's about the quarterback who you got on your roster and making him the best player he can be by acquiescing and adjusting to what he does best, especially if you draft him in the first round, especially if you brought him in as a high-priced free agent. So that always baffled me right there. So the fact that you have in Kevin Stefanski, a head coach who has won Coach of the Year 2 times in a row, with the willingness to say, you know what, I am willing to change if we are collaborative here and perceive that it's in the best interest of the football team, and in particular Deshaun Watson and his offense, to do things in a different manner or fashion. You know how much humility is involved in that? And that's not the typical mindset of anybody, especially at the top of their game. So right there, that's impressive. But to get more specific with the questions you asked, and forgive me for being long-winded and filibustering today, but I guess it's just in me.
Hey, buddy, we got no football. You can talk for 20 minutes on offensive X's and O's if you want. We got all the time in the world, brother.
What I do like, Bo, is I think I call this the progression of offense from an X's and O's standpoint.
Okay.
Because when the whole read route thing came in vogue and started really getting a lot of traction, I recall it with the Patriots, and Troy Brown made a killing off of it. And then that went from him to Welker to Julian Edelman, right? And I always felt that was playing offense at a higher level because you're not just stationary to what you see on the paper in your playbook, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, you got a 5 route there, then run your 5 route. No, okay, if that guy's inside, you go outside, read the zone. So what is it asking? It's asking the offensive players to do more from a read and understanding standpoint. And I think that's the way football is going. So for us to make that move and to be more in the mode of we're making options here and options there, and we're not just going to go to a specific spot, but we're going to outsmart and outflank the defense. That's what football is in its essence, outflanking your opponent. So I love that and what I saw. And what I did see, going back to what I earlier mentioned, is I didn't see guys making a bunch of mistakes. I didn't see a bunch of yelling and telling them to line up again or things of that nature. I saw guys in the right spot. So that's a good sign. And obviously, I'm glad I didn't see this. I didn't see much from a trickeration standpoint. I didn't see much from a deep ball standpoint, because that stuff right now, Bo, you want to keep under hat. Because, again, we're invited in there, and you should not be showing us everything that you're doing. Obviously, when you're working on things, you work on your things. But I did see enough from a short passing game to intermediate route standpoint to say that we have quarterbacks that can throw in tight windows, and we have receivers who understand spacing. I did see that.
What is it about this style that we're undertaking this transition to with Ken Dorsey having a big role in it? What is it about this that fits Deshaun Watson theoretically? We got to keep him healthy. He's got to get healthy. He looked good though last week. Why is this such a more natural fit for Watson?
Well, it allows him to be free, because at the end of the day, when you're under duress, you're going to go back to what you naturally do. I mean, in his case, that's going to be run around and make something happen. So if you're calling plays that are designed for him to run around and make things happen, and then orchestrate with that from the blocking patterns and all that entails, along with the routes that are being run to set that up to that can translate to something different down the field, and that's thinking beyond the play is basically what we're getting here. Because think about him as a quarterback, and tell me if you agree or not. Is he not the type of quarterback that where the first thing there he may not go that, but he can improvise?
Yeah.
So what are you doing? You're taking advantage of his ability to do just what? Improvise.
Well, and he's done it his whole life. I mean, this is is all he's done. I mean, he grew up doing this, did this in high school in Georgia, did it at Clemson, did it with the Texans as well. So it fits his eye, and it fits, I think, our receiving talent as well. One thing that that we stumbled upon, this is probably 3 weeks ago. We had Bubba Ventrone in here, and we started talking about the kickoff. And one thing Nathan and I have been saying is we just don't think fans have any idea of what's coming with this thing, with this play, how different it's going to look to them, and then how explosive it could be. What have you made? Because obviously you were out here, and I know they were practicing at times. What do you make of this play, and what do you think it will mean next season?
I see it being a feast or famine situation to where if you have the right guy back there on your kickoff return team, you can feast. Meaning that you mean to tell me they're going to have to put linebackers and D linemen out there because they're great at, and maybe some strong safeties, but you're just going to be hard-pressed to find a corner that's going to be able to shed the block of a tight end or a guard, right?
Yep.
That's going to be responsible for setting up the blocks now, or even a blocking linebacker. So you're going to have guys who may not be as fleet of foot. And with that, if you have a guy that can run through arm tackles and one-cut ability and has that type of vision, I can see the ball being on the 35, 40-yard line a lot, or touchdowns being scored, or past the 50 on average. The potential is there for it. If you have the wrong makeup of your kickoff coverage team, it's inviting you to get a lot of yards. Just on the premise that if he could put a hat on the hat, and for those who understand this lexicon I'm using, that means blocking a guy.
Yeah.
Then
right.
You should have a lot of success because of the fact that, again, the returner's getting a start. He catches the ball, and he's allowed to start. And then once he catches it, then you have to take off. So think about that. It gives him a chance to also see everything's live action, but it gives him a chance, too, to see it all taking place with him having the advantage of already being in the position of moving. So there's so many things about this that's exciting, but also if you're on a cover team, you're like, man, they've just made our job 10 times harder.
What do you think the makeup will be? Let's first do return team. You got 11 guys back there. What position groups will make up that 11 in your mind?
You're going to have I think a couple guys who may not have made a team. I mean, you're not going to dedicate everything to obviously special teams, but it is a phase that's very important. I see at least 2 or 3 tight ends being on there.
That's what I think too.
You're more than likely going to have a big body receiver who has ability and willingness to block out there. And you're going to see a linebacker or two who also have that ability to block and can get down the field. And maybe you'll throw a mobile guard backup lineman out there as well.
Well, it always used to be, as you know, it was corners, it was linebackers, and we'll get to the covering it in a second.
Mm-hmm.
But what you just articulated, that's not what it used to be.
Oh, not at all.
That's type of size. But now you're in such a confined space, so it's a total game changer on roster building. In terms of kick coverage, what will it be then?
That's where it really gets interesting because you still want to have that element of speed with the cornerbacks and the DBs and a wide receiver that's willing and able to tackle, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that used to be the majority of the team. I don't think it'd be that way anymore because most of these guys do not have the ability to do what? Shed a blocker.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is you're fitting on them, then you have to throw them to one side or the right or the left and then get into your lane as far as your tackling responsibility. And that's generally the responsibility of who? Linebackers, a strong safety to a large degree, as well as D linemen do it all the time. So from a preparation standpoint, those guys are a natural fit for it, but then we run to the issue of what? Speed.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the guys I just named aren't running 4.3, 4.4. And I bet you money every team in the NFL has at least 2 or 3 guys on their squad that can catch and run with the football who run just that. I know we got 2 or 3.
Oh, I know. I'm telling you, man, you talk to people, they don't know what's coming with this. It's going to be wide open. And a team like Kansas City, like if they could get Justin Reed to kick accurately for them, that's a game changer to have that, because one thing we notice is like 25% of the tackles, there's like 25% of tackles that the guy doing the kickoff is in on. Right. Like, think about that. That's a kicker. He's in. I'm not saying he's making solo tackles, but he's in on the tackle 25% of the time. In the previous, what was it, 5% of the time?
If that.
That's going to be key. That kicker's going to have to be able to tackle. You may find kickoff specialists.
Right. You might have a guy, I can kick and tackle. That's all I do.
Yeah.
Because, again, I can see this becoming a situation, Bo, in which, man, we're giving up the ball on the 40-yard line ad nauseum. And guess what that means? Scoring is about to take place. Mm-hmm. So the league's objective is to score. Let's not get that.
No question.
Convoluted whatsoever. It is this right here, I believe is gonna be it's going to be very, very intriguing to see how it unfolds because I can't see a situation where you're not getting the ball at least on average at 25-30.
I agree with you. I mean, I think a guy like Scottish Hammer would have been a really valuable player in something like this because he's willing to tackle. So he's someone who could have done the kickoffs and the punts, but then he also would tackle. That kicker is going to have to stick their – like, I don't want D-Hop sticking his nose in.
That's the problem, right, because if he's sticking his nose
I don't want that.
And you're doing this 3 or 4 times a game?
Nope.
Believe me, he's going to feel the effects of it, and ultimately it's going to impact his ability. Think about this. 8 or 9 games into the season, you got – 40 to 50 tackles on your leg.
No, dude, no.
Or not even tackles, assists,
just in the mix,
or just in the mix, right?
No,
you're not physically supposed to be doing that as a kicker.
No.
So I think what we're going to see ultimately, if this thing does stay in play, is that there are going to be guys who are that's just your job.
I agree.
So I wonder from a roster makeup, will they expand it for that reason alone? We'll see, but that's going to be a pivotal part to it, man, because you already know, like I know, Bo, field position is everything.
It's everything. Yeah, and this flips it. Great talking to you, buddy, as always. Thanks for your time. Great seeing you last Friday at the block party as well.
You as well, my man.
All right.
You as well, my neighbor, actually.
That's right. I didn't realize we were that close, right down the road. My goodness. We got to get together, my friend.
We do, man. We certainly do.
All right.
Good talking to you, Bo.
The great Gerard Cherry joining us on the Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea Hotline, official sponsor of your Cleveland Browns. Keep it twisted, Cleveland. A little bit later, you'll hear from passing game coordinator Chad O'Shea. You're listening to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. Get your Cleveland Browns single game tickets now for all the great matches at Cleveland Browns Stadium. Visit clevelandbrowns.com/tickets or call 440-891-5050 to purchase those today. If you're a man in your 40 like Gibby and I, mid 40s for us, if that is the case, you're about ready to feel old, because 30 years ago today, O.J. Simpson got in a white Bronco. Now, I'm in high school at the time. I remember it vividly, and the reason I remember it, you have to remember, for the kids out there, we lived in a world where there was not cell phones, or maybe if people had them, it was like Zach Morris. I did not have a cell phone. 1994, I promise you that. So not only did I not have a cell phone, we also did not. I did not have, where I grew up, we did not have cable. So if you wanted extended channels, you had to get a satellite, like the big old satellite dishes with like a cement slab, and you put the giant dish on it. That was the only way you were going to get channels other than the basic channels. So the channels I had growing up were ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS, and 2 Canadian channels because we were so close to the Canadian border. So we got CBC and I want to say CABC maybe. Two Canadian channels. That's it. The reason that this was such an incredible thing is because it happened during the NBA Finals. And so you were watching. The only reason that I even knew that this happened, otherwise I would have known until the next day, is I'm watching the NBA Finals and Bob Costas comes in and begins to try to explain it all. And then you're locked in, and you're like, what is happening? And I'm sure for the gross many of you at CNN, then you could just watch CNN, and they covered it probably nonstop, car chases, so forth. But we didn't have that. That was it.
Yeah, we didn't have that. I went back and watched some of the video from that night, and like Marv Albert tosses to Tom Brokaw in the middle of a fast break in Game 5 of the NBA Finals.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He goes, "Hey, we have to leave you. We're going back to Tom Brokaw at NBC News headquarters in New York."
I guess that was the right decision.
95 million people supposedly watched that night.
On the various, across, yeah. Well, probably what happened was the people that were watching the finals and flipped it over, if they wanted it nonstop, they were watching CNN or ABC or NBC. And when we had Al Michaels in here, that's the first time I ever heard the word farcical. Because he was on the broadcast on ABC, and he was with Peter Jennings, and he lived in the same neighborhood as OJ, and they were friends, and they'd golf together and all of this stuff, and so he knew him well. And he called out the Howard Stern prankster and said, farcical. That's the first time I ever heard that word. When we had Al, we asked him about farcical, which was so great. But I don't even know. In today's day and age climate with social media and texting and an ability for information to be shared immediately, I cannot think of an example of something that would ever top this. In that if you are not of a certain age, I can't really explain it to you. But it was in those days, like, you all gathered around to do one thing. There wasn't two screening. You weren't on your phone and on a gaming device and watching a TV. It was one TV.
There were none. There was nothing other than the TV.
You watched one TV, and it was the NBA Finals were on, and everybody watched it. And then all of a sudden, O.J. Simpson's in a white Bronco. And to try to describe O.J. Simpson's popularity at that time, I would say he was a little bit like Charles Barkley, who we talked about earlier. Not in terms of being like the funny jocularity, but like Charles is almost universally approved.
Sure.
Like everybody likes him. And that's how O.J. was. He was universally liked. He did the Olympics. He did football on NBC. He was in The Naked Gun. He did Hertz commercials. He did a Hertz commercial with Arnold Palmer. Like all of those things he was doing at that time. So it was so stunning. The other thing is we found out about it later that there were previous issues with domestic violence with him. But in those days, you could cover that up.
There was no social media.
There was no social media. There was no internet. If something happened in Brentwood, which is where he lived, the only way you would know is to go to the L.A. County and look up a police report. Physically. You couldn't. There's no other way to search it. So once we found out later, once they charged him and once there was trial, it was like, oh, he'd actually done this a lot. But we didn't know.
No.
The public didn't know. It was all under wraps. All covered up. So you had no clue. all you thought was he was like the nicest guy ever who was selling rental cars and palling around with everybody.
I mean, that's when Costas broke up, like when he was doing this. Like, this was his friend. This is a guy that had been in studio with him, the studio shows, and done games, and like that was the problem for a lot of these sportscasters and newscasters. They'd worked side by side with this guy.
The idea that he, on June 17th, 1994, you had Game 5 of the NBA Finals. You had, I think, Arnold Palmer playing his last round of the U.S. Open.
I was getting to that whole list of things.
It's the Stanley Cup. The Rangers had just won it.
The ticker tape parade was earlier that day.
So that was going on as well.
Yeah. And the World Cup started.
Oh, that's right.
Our Jim Donovan was doing World Cup play-by-play.
That's right. It was World Cup. The 94 World Cup was here.
Yeah.
It was in the States. That's right. Brazil won that one over Italy in PK.
Correct.
Oh, my God. Roberto Baggio missed that kick.
And then it was just the trial. You just watched it.
Well, then that never stopped. Came. I mean, so there was actually 2 30 for 30s that came from that summer. And there was the OJ documentary, but the 2 Escobars came from that summer as well, because the guy who did not score for Colombia was murdered, but it was in that World Cup where they say he blew it or whatever.
Yeah.
So that came from that as well. So you had the 30 for 30 on this day, which if you haven't seen it, I recommend it because it's just a bonkers 24 hours. Then the 10-parter, the 10-part OJ, Made in America or whatever it's called, that thing. And then there was a fictional one on FX too.
Every bridge was just had hundreds of people on every overpass, like signs, people, like everywhere. There were cops everywhere. Like, just the number of police cars following this white Bronco. I'm like, can we not stop him?
Well, and I think
we're just going to let him keep driving.
Yeah, they were going to let him keep driving because remember Al Collins was on the phone saying like, hey, he's going to harm himself. Like, stay back, man. I got this. Nobody wants to see this on the street.
And then he pulls into the development.
Pulls right into his yard.
Yeah.
And I think like Ford stopped making the Bronco for a while because of that.
Pretty sure.
Yeah, they stopped making it. Now it's back now. I love the new Broncos. They look great. But like, man, it's it was wild. I've interviewed him. I've told you this story before. OJ's kid went to Florida State and he had this autograph thing at a bar outside in Quincy, Florida, which is a little distance from Tallahassee. And I was pretty nervous going out there to interview him. And then we went in and we did the interview. And as soon as he could not have been kinder, more great. I mean, he's like Juice, honestly.
Yeah.
Like it was like the guy that I used to see as a kid on NBC's football. Just Mr. Congeniality. You never know anything. What? I remember leaving going like, who did we just talk to? Like,
did that really happen?
What just happened? Did that just happen? But yeah, 30 years ago, man. I remember the next day we had the Big Sky State Games, which was like the Montana Olympics for like high school athletes. And so we had put a team together for the basketball tournament. We were going to try to win the Big Sky State Games, and we were in the qualifier. And we had our football coach the basketball team, me and a bunch of buddies from the area, and I'll never forget he said this. Probably in poor taste. Well, not probably, I suppose, very much. But he goes, "We're gonna run the O.J. Simpson offense. Run like hell." That was his line. Okay, all right. We're all like 16. Like, all right.
Still trying to figure out what I saw
what did I
last
just process
night,
last night, buddy? Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Where were you? Were you watching the NBA Finals?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
like that's. I didn't have cable.
Me either.
Like that NBC NBA Finals. Okay.
And
it took off the show my parents usually watched on Sunday night or whatever. Like, I mean, we had no air conditioning.
It must have been it was a Friday night.
Oh, you're right. Friday night.
It was a Friday night. It was a Friday night.
Yeah, there's no air conditioning. Like the fans are on, the windows are open, and all of a sudden it's like I can't stop watching this police chase. What is this all about?
Jeez. No. Yeah, it was. I said this earlier this morning. It was one of those truly you had to be there moment because you can't possibly begin to describe it any other way. It was surreal and nuts and all of the above. And then the idea that like later on that one of his defense attorneys' entire offspring would end up being the most famous people on the planet.
Yeah, media moguls.
Jeez. Oh, my goodness. All right, we're going to go. We'll have Chad O'Shea from the podium coming up next. You'll listen to Cleveland Browns Daily on 850 ESPN Cleveland. And Bo here for my friends at the James B. Beam Distilling Company. Sunny days, and it's going to be hot this week. Call for refreshing cocktails, which is why I choose Basil Hayden. Mellow, refined, subtly sweet. It's perfect for this time of year. It is approachable, lighter side of bourbon, higher percentage of rye. Give it that subtle spiciness, perfect for the setting and the tone of the season. For hosting backyard dinner parties to happy hours on the patio, beach days, enjoy time with friends, and more in an approachable, sophisticated way. Listen, do this. Tumbler, rocks, Basil Hayden, twist a lemon. You'll thank me later. Head over to basilhaydenbourbon.com to check out their cocktails for your next gathering. And now here's our passing game coordinator, Chad O'Shea.
Hey.
You're down?
How you doing, Mary Kay? Good.
Amari not being here, how did that impact your installation during OTAs?
Yeah, we had so many guys that were, working so hard through the process, and it was nice to see the guys that were here really make a lot of improvements. Learning some new language and learning different ways to do things, which was really nice to see them work extremely hard and make a lot of progress. It's just we really concentrate and focus on the guys that are here, and I can't say enough about the way those guys have worked on the field and in the meeting room. We've spent a lot of time in the meeting room, invested a lot of time with the quarterbacks, and a lot of communication that occurs to try to get on the same page. So the guys that have been here have worked extremely hard.
Last year with Elijah, it seemed like during the offseason program he was doing so many things, and there were just all these wrinkles that you guys seem to be trying to incorporate with him. And this offseason program, it feels like a lot of that has just been scaled back and maybe a little more just kind of back to the basics. Just what was your view on his first season here and what you hope he's able to do this coming year?
With all the receivers, there's a balance in, using their versatility and doing a lot of things with them, and then narrowing down their focus so they can really concentrate and be really good at the things that we narrow down for them. We're very fortunate with Elijah that he can do a lot of things really well, but it's also important for him to concentrate and focus on the things that, we narrow down and say, hey, here's a specific role for you. So he's really, I can't say enough about his progress, his improvement, the way he's worked on a daily basis has been just very impressive. He's provided leadership to our group. I've really seen him grow in that role of providing leadership. So not only does he provide a skill set on the field, which is versatile, one of the things he's provided for our group is leadership. So we're going to always ask Elijah to do a lot of things and wear a lot of different hats because we think he can handle those things. But Elijah's really performed well because he's really concentrated on the basics, and it's been really impressive to see.
Chad,
how is Mike?
Chad, off of that question about Elijah, not only did you guys move him around a lot early last season, but through his career he's gone through a lot of quarterbacks, a number of offensive coordinators. For a receiver trying to get his established in the league, how much can that stunt someone's growth or impact their development?
Yeah, in a lot of ways, the development of the receiver, you benefit from being exposed to different ways to do things in different systems and learning how to play with different type of quarterbacks. So it's oftentimes an advantage, is the way we see it, to where time spent in different ways to do things and maybe catching passes from a different guy. Although you don't have continuity, what you do learn is a lot about that player and their ability to adapt, that's one of Elijah's strengths, is his ability to adapt and be versatile and play different positions. But certainly, I think anytime a player is in your system, in your building, call it the second lap around the track, there's some comfort for that player to be, around the coaching staff. And obviously he's learning some new guys now, but being around Coach Stefanski and being around the building and the support staff is probably comforting for him and allows him to be a much improved player going into his second year with us.
How does Mike Woods look, and I think he dealt with everything that he had to go through?
Yeah, there's different players deal with adversity throughout their career in different ways, whether it's injury, it can be a lot of different things you deal with from an adversity standpoint. Mike has embraced that. He's come back really strong off of his injury, an injury that's a tough and difficult injury at that position. but I've been impressed with Mike, the way he's worked. He's performed very well on the field this spring. And Mike has always brought a mental ability to function in multiple roles for us. He's very smart. And, that allows him to have more of an increased role. But from a physical standpoint, been very impressed with how hard he's worked. And it's really a tribute to the guys, our training staff in this building, our strength and conditioning staff, Sean Holes. Those guys have done a great job with him of getting him from his injury out on the field, performing at a level that I think is very competitive.
Do you think it could be more difficult when you have an injury like that cost him a whole season that early in his career, right? Like he had to establish himself and then get hurt. You know what I mean? To come back and try to.
Yeah, I mean it's like if you're in a boxer and you get punched early in the rounds, and I think that's kind of what happens to a player early in his career. But regardless of when that happens, the resiliency of the player is what's most important. And the great thing about Mike Woods is we believe that he has the trait of resiliency, and he's going to fight through it. And it's been really impressive to see his improvement coming off the injury.
Cedric's been real noticeable here during the spring program. Just where have you seen him grow the most?
Been outstanding. Cedric Tillman's been outstanding. He has taken every rep and used that as an opportunity to become better. I see a lot of improvement in him in year 2. Obviously, there were some things he did in year 1 we were very pleased with and so excited about his future watching him in year 1. But can't say enough about how well he's done on the field for us as far as his work ethic, making plays. I think he's more confident in year 2, which you would hope to be is the case with a young player. But Cedric, I just spoke to him and spoke to the group about how impressed we've been with him and how much he's improved, and to see his development has been really great as a coach to see.
Chad, when you, from your perspective, these choice routes that are part of this new offense, how do you make sure that the quarterback and the receiver see things the same way?
Yeah, I mean, choice routes and with other routes, it's really time invested in the amount of time you can spend on the field with the quarterback. That's the most valuable thing you can do. We can show film, we can get the playbooks out, and we can look at the playbooks and look at the drawings. But at the end of the day, what's most important is the quarterbacks are on the same page with the receivers, and the only way to do that is to get on the field and work together. It's been great to have Deshaun out there throwing with the guys and really working to be on the same page, because you have to see it through what we say the same set of eyes. They have to be on the same page.
Chad, one of the guys who's gotten a lot of reps, it seems, with Amari and Jerry being out, is Jamari Thrash. What has he shown you since he got here?
Yeah, we were really excited when we were able to draft Jamari Thrash from Louisville. We were excited because of his versatility, very similar to Elijah Moore, where you can do a lot of different things with his skill set. The thing that I've been most impressed with Jamari is offensively, or let's say schematically, where they aligned him at the University of Louisville. They aligned him in one spot. He was on one side of the field. So his transition to the NFL and to our offense, we're now moving him around. He needs to learn formations. He needs to learn just getting into a huddle to hear the verbal communication. They've always been nonverbal at the University of Louisville. And to see a player handle those things as well as he has, that's been most impressive. I mean, we all see his skill set. He can get open, he can catch the ball. But what doesn't go seen a lot is his ability of functioning kind of across the board when he wasn't required to do that in college. So he's been able to do that because he's worked really hard to be able to do that.
How has Jerry Jeudy been able to stay involved and be on top of everything without being able to practice?
Yeah, we've Coach Stefanski's structured our off-season program in a way in which a player can take advantage of walkthroughs, meeting time he's structured for us. So Jerry's made so much progress learning the offense, learning his teammates in a setting that just necessarily hasn't been on the field all the time. So we've gotten a lot out of having great walkthroughs in which he's very attentive and trying to learn the offense, the meeting room setting. There's been a lot of communication with him and the quarterbacks to be on the same page. So that's been really neat to see that you don't necessarily have to always jump on the field every day to make progress and become a better player and help our team win.
What do you think he adds to that receiver room and how he fits with the rest of the guys inside this offense?
Yeah, Jerry's another guy that's going to bring versatility. That's the one word we've used a lot with a lot of these different receivers, and that's not by accident that's what we're looking for. The more you can have a guy function in different spots, it allows the other players to use their skill sets in different spots. So that's the one thing that we've always really liked about Jerry Jeudy is his ability to kind of play across the board, play in different roles. He's got a various, I would say his route tree is pretty big, so we can do a lot of different things with him, both inside, outside. And again, that helps those other guys be in different positions to use their skill set, because I can't say enough about the work that those other guys have done on the field this spring, and really excited about
30-30
ability to be used in different spots as well.
Last one. Did you give Sed like offensive MVP or?
Yeah, I'll just say I'm so happy with Sed's development, and he really took advantage. He was in this building nonstop. He didn't miss a day. He worked so hard, and I can't say enough about the job he did. You guys good? Thank you, guys.
You're up.
All right, Chad O'Shea talking about Cedric Tillman there at the end, his availability from last week. That could be something. We don't want to don't make too big of a deal about what's going on in May and in June. But
we have done that before.
We have. But he possesses a skill set that we don't otherwise have. His physicality is real. Remember what he was before the injury at Tennessee. That ball of clay is still there. And
Absolutely.
If he can go, now you're onto something.
He has the size.
Yeah.
Like, it's fascinating to see what happens with David Bell, with Cedric Tillman. And, I mean, you've got a lot of guys in that wide receiver room still.
Yeah, you do.
And it's kind of make or break for some of the younger guys. I don't think Tillman's at that point, but it might be for Bell.
I think Bell's at that point. I think Tillman's at if Tillman can play to what they drafted him to be, then that is just one other wild card and by the way, one other thing about all those receivers, we're going to be a lot more 4 wide this year.
Correct.
So you're going to get a lot more at bats.
Yeah. For those worried about the depth at tight end, you're going to have 4 wide receivers.
You're going to be fine on that side of things. Yeah. All right, that'll do it for us. Appreciate you listening. Z will be back with us tomorrow on the program. The Next Level is coming up next. Thanks for listening, everybody. Cleveland Browns Daily, 850 ESPN Cleveland.